Hey everybody, Shark Scrapper. I thought it might be fun to look at 3 switches of similar size and take a look at, how they're made and if there's any greater value in one versus the other. So we have a Tough Switch Ubiquity Network. We have a Cisco. And what model is this? This is just Cisco Small Business. I don't know. I don't see a model. I'm sure there's one there. Yeah, there we are. Let me hold it upside down for you. So we've got the Cisco SF30208P. And then we have a D-Link. So here's the D-Link Gigabit switch, D-Link Green, DGS 1024D. All right, come on, let's dive in, see how they compare. All right, we're going to put the D-Link and the Cisco off to the side. We're going to go into the Tough Switch first. It feels tough. It's got rubber around the edges, making it, giving it some extra padding, cushion kind of thing. Now the question is, how do you get into this? So they've made it tough to figure out how to get into it too. Ah, there we are. The screws are underneath this rubber padding. Yeah, right. Come on, all the way out. There we go. And boop. Oh, it's got another plastic layer, another shock absorbing layer on top of it, just like that, dummy. All right, now we have more screws in here. Nope, no screws down there. And we got all the screws out of here. So it's tough to get into along with everything else. Nope, that's not doing anything for me. I thought maybe those would be some sort of clips to release it or something, but they're not. Those are not screw holes. Well, something came loose. Something came loose in there somehow or another. I probably just had to beat on it, loosen it up from just being stuck together. All right, so we have aluminum, right? Yep, aluminum shell. And we're going to set everything off to the side so we can do an opened up comparison. And we got some wire, little plastic, and a power board. And I would have thought for a tough, oh, that's how they did it. So I was expecting a little more cushion, but they've got the cushion pads here to separate the boards. So that's keeping them, so they can absorb more shock and stuff. So power board over there. Now as far as the board, it's the main processor board here, the switchboard. Little aluminum heatsink, 2 little aluminum heatsinks. And then here's our processor board. We've got some ICs, we've got some MLCCs, a bunch of MLCCs in here. Boy, look at those. Those are pretty big ones right there. We have a nice big flat pack Broadcom which makes sense. And then a bunch of other smaller components, and still a bunch of small components here on this side too. So, you know, it's a nice low telecom. Let's see how the others compare in size and such. And let's see. Are you aluminum? No. Ferrous. All right. So that was our tough switch, which was tough to get into. Next up, D-Link. D-Link. So far, more screws, but much easier to get into, which you would expect, because this one was not designed to take abuse. You know, wasn't hardened. That's shred. And our main board on this one, oops, pulled off the BGA. Let's see if we can do this without, dang it, ratzel fratzel. Yeah, they're all coming off. BGAs are all coming off of this one. So this quickly becomes a nothing board, because all the real meat just went away with the heat sinks. Yeah, let's see if we can pop those off of there. It happens sometimes. So what did we have here? We had another Broadcom BGAs here. So we'll go ahead and get those separated so that we can do the comparisons. And you know what? Oh, and a gold cornered BGA. So that's cool. You know, it actually brings up an interesting point. If you're scrapping and the BGAs come off of the board, well, can you still throw the board in with the box and the BGAs and, you know, it's still the same thing? And the answer is no. Because can you just imagine being on the other end of that? You dump out this box and you got all these BGAs and you got all these boards and you don't know if they all match, and yeah, don't do that. That's not a good thing. And a tiny little power board on this one. All right, and the rest of the shred body. Alrighty. All right, now Cisco. You know our friend Ben. Those of you that don't know Ben, if you don't know Ben, you need to really check him out. So E-Waste Ben from Australia, great guy. I've been watching him for many years, and he's the guy that convinced me to finally start putting my stuff up on video several years ago. So real good guy. Anyway, my friend Ben loves Cisco products. Yeah, if you're new to the scrapping recycling world, check out E-Waste Ben. He's been doing this for a long, long time. He's down in Australia. It's always interesting to me to see how how the laws are different in Australia than they are up here. All over the world, they're very different. So anyway, all right, shred. All right, shred, and we can already see this is a much bigger board, but that's also because the power components are on this same board. Got a malcontent screw here, so we'll give it a little tighten. And then untighten, and she comes right out. Yeah, we'll get this plug disconnected. So for those of you that are doing this as a hobby, these little nuts here can sometimes be brass. Sometimes they're even brass color. In this case, it's silver and magnetic, so they're not brass. But even if they're silver, they might just be plated brass. So, okay, more thread, and there's probably going to be, I'm thinking, a gold corner BGA under there. Let's find out. Yep. So we can see that this one has a much bigger board on the Cisco. It still has essentially, well, here, let's do this. Let's do some side-by-side comparisons of the main stuff. So here's our Cisco. And there was our D-Link. And here was the tough switch. Okay, so let's see what we got going here. For the Cisco D-Link and tough switch. The tough switch has one primary flat pack, a Broadcom, and then a bunch of smaller components. There's a small flat pack there. The D-Link, 2 BGAs and a gold corner BGA. And then the Cisco, 1 BGA about the same size. And yeah, look at that. They're pretty much the same size. So not like there's any extra value there. And then these 2 flat packs are probably doing the same thing that these 2 BGAs are doing, would be my guess. Plus the usual kind of ICs and such. Remember that with the D-Link, it had a separate power board, as did the tough switch. The tough switch actually had a much larger power board. In the case of the Cisco, the power components are on the board itself. So that presents some interesting challenges when you're selling these boards, right? Because is this now a telecom high or a telecom low because it's got the power components on it? So, you know, in this board here, because the BGAs came off while I was taking off the heat sinks, the board itself is barely a mid-grade board right now. So that is a very important observation. If you depopulate your boards, you're lowering the value, and you need to, oh, look at all those MLCCs, whole line of them right there. So you want to assess what the difference is when you take off the stuff that actually gives the board its value. And then in the case of the Tough book, a lot of components on that in a very small form factor. So that's actually a pretty good board there. So, you know, boy, this was really interesting that the size of this power board in that small container. I just thought that was really interesting. So that might suggest that this can take more abuse too. There may be more circuit protection and things like that built into it. The other things to consider, the D-Link had 3 aluminum heat sinks. The Cisco had the 1 aluminum heat sink. The Toughbook had no heat sink. No heat sink? Oh, I'm sorry. I lied. Had 2 small, let go. Had 2 small heat sinks. Right, so 2 small heat sinks there. 3 pretty good size. And then with this one, you all have seen this before. Most yards you're fine if you just clip off those metal ends. You don't have to pry the metal out from inside there. So it looks like there's more cast aluminum value here. However, this the tough switch had this big aluminum case. So that's actually quite a bit of cast aluminum there. So I'd say that the tough switch wins for aluminum, because you got all of that. And it wins, it looks like it might win for wire, or maybe it's a toss-up between the D-Link and the Toughbook for insulated copper wire, right? And then the Cisco, you know, it's all on one board, so you don't have as much, but this board is of better value. So I noticed something that's really interesting as I was taking this apart. I saw the scorch mark here on the Cisco. And then I flipped the board over and you can see the scorch mark right there. So these components right there burned out all the way through the board. That's what fried this board. It's always fascinating to me when I see the point of failure on these components. Now, what would have caused that? Well, that could be anybody's guess, right? Power surge, lightning strike, who knows? But that was the point of failure. Very cool, huh? In addition to wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas, or however you celebrate the holidays, I just want to remind you, we got a big change coming to the Shark Scrapper channel in 2023. It's going to be awesome. Have a great one, everybody.